He woke up alone at sea, floating aimlessly with no life jacket, no boat, no sign of rescue in sight. This is the story of a man who overcame. This is Against All Odds, survival stories you won't believe. Welcome to The Cellar. James Michael Grimes is a 28-year-old man from Lafayette, Alabama. Lafayette is a city located around 111 miles or 178 kilometers southeast of Birmingham, Alabama. It's a relatively small city with around no more than 3,000 residents. James worked construction and enjoyed a relatively simple life. For James, his entire world was his 9-year-old daughter. She was everything to him, and she would end up being the thing he clung to most when his life was turned upside down. It was the week of Thanksgiving, 2022. James, along with 18 members of his family, had decided to spend this holiday out to sea as they booked a family stay aboard a Carnival cruise ship. The ship was called the Carnival Valor, a Conquest-class cruise ship operated by the Carnival Cruise Line. The ship is listed as being 952 feet in length and weighs 110,000 gross tons. A crew of 1,180 people keep the ship running smoothly for the 2,980 possible guests aboard. James Grimes and his family would board the cruise ship in New Orleans, and soon it would set sail to Cozumel. Cozumel is a popular Mexican island in the Caribbean Sea, known for its vibrant coral reefs, crystal clear waters, and is a top destination for those looking to scuba dive or snorkel. It's also known as a major cruise port. November 23rd, 2022, Thanksgiving Eve. James Grimes and his family were enjoying the luxuries of the ship. That evening, after dinner, James enjoyed a couple of beers and would enter into an air guitar competition. Turns out, those involved were of no competition, as James took home the win. He was rewarded with a free drink from the bar, and the night continued on. Eventually, James felt the need to go relieve himself. He told his family at the bar that he was going to use the restroom, and proceeded to walk away. Hours would pass, and James never returned to the bar. Eventually, James' family would head to their rooms to call it a night, but they soon realized that James wasn't there either. The following day, James still had not been seen, and it was at this point that his sister reported him missing. The cruise ship would immediately begin searching the boat from top to bottom, hoping to locate James. But after a thorough search, no sign of him was found. The Coast Guard was then alerted, and they swiftly joined in to help. As the Coast Guard began searching by boat and air, the cruise ship began retracing its steps. Hours would continue to go by, and no sign of James was found. Pretty soon, the sun began to set. The temperatures out at sea would drop, and the hope of finding James alive began to diminish. It was dark, cold, and wet all around. James' vision was blurry at first, his eyes trying frantically to adapt to the dark, the stars up above providing the only semblance of light. It took a few moments for James's brain to understand where he was. At first, he didn't believe it. This had to be a nightmare of some sort, just a silly dream that he would soon wake from and laugh about with his family later. But as he tasted the salty air, he soon coughed up a mouthful of water. This was no nightmare, no dream. James was in the Gulf of Mexico, all alone. He peered in every direction. No boat could be seen. Had he fallen overboard? Why couldn't he remember? How had he gone from enjoying a drink with his family to now treading water in the middle of the ocean? James couldn't remember anything about how he had gotten there, but he knew he needed to do everything in his power to survive. One of his worst fears was drowning, so right from the beginning, James was determined to make it back to his family, to his daughter. The first night was exhausting, lonely, and downright terrifying. The first thing James did was take off his clothes, as he realized the wet garments were doing nothing but weighing him down. Luckily for James, he somehow pushed through. The morning sun was a welcome reprieve from the pitch-black void of the ocean at night, but with the light of day came new challenges. The first came in the form of jellyfish. As James continued treading water, he felt the first one bump into his leg. Soon, others followed, as James had drifted into a smack of jellyfish. The pain would soon follow, the first bit searing into his leg as the jellyfish tentacles came into contact with his bare skin. James did everything to get clear of the painful creatures as they stung his legs, arms, and neck. Finally, after swimming and thrashing through the waters, James was once again alone. Well, as alone as one can be in the vast blue oceans of Earth. As James calmed himself down and tried to save his energy, he soon spotted a fin in the water about 15 feet away. He was certain it was a shark. He knew if it attacked him, he would stand no chance against one of nature's apex predators. Soon, it was 14 feet, 13, 11, 9. James held his breath and went under the water, trying to open his eyes to see what exactly was coming straight at him. He never got a good look at it, but as he came up for air, he felt it hit him in the leg. Pure instinct kicked in, and James kicked the creature as hard as he could muster. He then spun in a circle, looking in either direction to see if it was coming back for him, but miraculously, it never did return. James was now sunburned, exhausted, and the sun was once again beginning to set. He didn't know if he had another night in him. At this point, the thought of getting home to his 9-year-old daughter was the only thing keeping him afloat. He kept telling himself, "I'm not going to die out here." At his lowest point, as hope seemed as fleeting as the setting sun, James made eye contact with 2 ships. He gathered his bearings and decided this was his best chance of survival. He had to try and reach those ships before the daylight vanished for good. He began swimming with a newfound purpose, and over the course of the next few hours, he did nothing but head in the direction of those ships. The sun would set, but even in the dark, James continued to swim. As James continued to survive, the search for him was still underway. Airplanes from Mobile and Clearwater, Florida, aided in the more than 200-mile search, along with a New Orleans helicopter crew and a small boat from Venice, Florida. The search and rescue team worked frantically to try to find James, but as darkness came, they too began to lose hope that James would be found alive. But somehow, some way, James made it close enough to one of those 2 ships. He started yelling over and over, giving all he had left to get someone's attention. Finally, he saw someone standing on the deck of the ship, and he screamed as loud as he could. He knew he didn't have much time left, but he wasn't about to give up when he was this close to safety. The person on the boat ran to grab something to help James. The man strapped a flashlight to a life preserver and threw it into the waters. But every time James made an effort to grab onto it, the waves kept pushing him away. The man on board the ship then yelled down to James to hang on for another 15 minutes. The Coast Guard will be here soon. A rescue helicopter would arrive on scene, lowering a basket down and eventually getting James on board. Those that rescued James are pretty certain he only had maybe minutes left in him. You could see that he had given his all to stay alive. From there, the rescue team soon transferred James to the awaiting emergency medical services at the New Orleans Lakefront Airport. James would be taken to the hospital, where he spent the next 5 days in the ICU. His family were notified and so happy to find out that he had survived. Following James' ordeal, he had this to say: "I wanted to see my family, and I was dead set on making it out of there. I was never accepting that this is it. This is going to be the end of my life. I'm 28 years old. I'm too young. This is not going to be it." James's story is just another example of triumph, of pure survival, when all the odds are simply stacked against you. In the end, he survived somewhere between 18 to 20 or so hours within the Gulf of Mexico, with no flotation device of any kind. It's truly miraculous that James managed to survive. In the end, an investigation would be launched to try and find out how James ended up in the water in the first place. I found this quote about the situation. Cruise ships have safety barriers in all public areas that are regulated by U.S. Coast Guard standards that prevent a guest from falling off. The only way to go overboard is to purposefully climb up and over the safety barriers. In the end, we don't know how James ended up in the water, and according to his account, he can't remember it at all. But what we do know is that he survived an absolutely unbelievable situation. He went against the odds and lived to tell his story. A big thank you to each and every one of you for tuning in to another episode. If you enjoy the content I make here on the channel, then please hit the like and subscribe button. It helps the channel continue to grow. Also, you can check the description box below and find the link to my merch store and a link to my membership tier for the channel. For only $2.99 a month, you can help support my channel further, and you get some cool perks to go along with it. One of those perks is having your name listed here in the end of each of my videos. So thank you to all my Cellar Dweller members. Also, if you'd like to submit a real-life scary story of any kind, please do so using the email linked in the description box below. As always, I do all the research, writing, recording, and editing for the channel myself, so anything that you do to help support the channel is greatly appreciated. And until next time, I will see you all again as we head back into the cellar.